All right, our topic today is continuing on with our OEM specific training series, and this week it is Mercedes-Benz. So we're going to talk about what makes Mercedes unique in the market. And first off, we'll start off with some history. So Carl Friedrich Benz is the Benz part of the Mercedes name. He founded Benz and Company, CIE would be how they abbreviate it over in Germany. It was founded in 1883. Now he's credited for coming up with, say, the first motorized car-like vehicle, I guess you could say, because it's a little three-wheeler cart down here, and they called that the Benz Patent Motor Wagon, MOTORWAGN, because once again, German, right? So that was in 1885 he came up with this. And then Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft, I'm not really good with pronouncing German, but that was the other half of the company, founded in 1890. Both companies merged in 1926 and became Daimler-Benz AG, manufacturing under the name Mercedes-Benz. Now, they picked the Mercedes name because that was the name of Daimler's most important vehicle that they had. So they combined, kind of both and gave them the name there. So they went through, the 1900s and all that. And, through World War II, and then partnered with Studebaker in 1958 to start selling vehicles in the U.S. So they were selling right along through that. And then they ended up, as you may know, they merged with Chrysler in 1998 to form Daimler Chrysler. Due to that merger, the Sprinter van was born. So, the Dodge Sprinter, Mercedes Sprinter, Freightliner Sprinter, all of that came as the same basic vehicle, just with different badges on it, really. And that was born out of that, as well as the Chrysler Crossfire, which was born out of that, was based on a Mercedes platform. Really didn't have a lot of crossover, as much as they thought they would have, I guess, when they first merged. So they ended up selling a majority share of their Chrysler shares in 2007. And then that kind of brings us to today, where they are Mercedes-Benz takes care of the automotive side and Daimler takes care of the trucking side. So let's look at sales. Let's look at their top models. These are the reason I do this is because, well, what kind of cars are we going to see out in the shops, right? So if it stands to reason if they sold more, then there's going to be more to work on in the shop. So I always want to see what kind of the top ones are. So the top one on this, once again, 2013 to 2023, so about a 10-year span. C-Class, 622,000. E-Class, 440,000, and you can see how it goes down from there. All told, all of these top 10 models combined to sell a little over 2 million units over that 10-year span. And you also notice we're kind of getting down. Not one of these even hit 750,000 sales in the US. Now, of course, over in Europe, sell a lot more, and worldwide, globally, they sell a lot more vehicles. But I just found it an interesting trend, and this is the first time I put this graph in one of these. And we can see definitely what that graph is doing, right? So this is overall sales for Mercedes over those 10 years. So the peak was about 2014 overall. Now, to be fair, a couple of these models have just dropped off altogether starting in 2016. Like these, a few of these ones up here on the top there, it looks like the M-Class, the GLK, and see, what's this pinky one, GL Class, right? So a lot of those kind of dropped off, but the sales were not made up by the other models. Is kind of what I'm trying to get at. You see, all the models are relatively shrinking as it goes down. In 2023, that was their worst US model year for at least those top 10 models. So just an interesting trend that I noticed. Don't know, I'm sure they still sell quite a few worldwide. It's just not nearly as many of those models in the US. 2013 C-Class is one good representation out of that. The C-Class was the top selling model over those 10 years, and 2013 was the high water mark for them. So it was the third generation of the C-Class. It was offered with a 1.6, 1.8, and 3.5 liter naturally aspirated engines. 6.3 liter AMG, that's their performance engine, was also available. And then a 7-speed automatic transmission. Same model year. I guess 2013 was a high water mark for a lot of them. 2013 E-Class as well. So is their fourth generation of the E-Class, 3.5 liter, 4.6 liter engines, gas engines. and a 3-liter diesel was available. Also a 5.5-liter AMG, 7-speed automatic transmission. And interesting note on this model year, 2013 was the first year after doing a $1 billion facelift for a model. So it wasn't even a new generation. It was just a mid generation facelift, but it was said they spent over $1 billion just on the facelift with it and whatever tweaks they made. So that was kind of interesting tidbit there. And then I decided to pick an SUV. This is their closest thing to an SUV that made it on the list at the top 10 anyways. 2018 GLA class. So this was the first generation of the GLA. In North America, it was available only with a 2-liter engine. And it comes equipped with a 7-speed DCT transmission, and the Infiniti Q30 and the QX30 were also based on this platform as well. So they just changed the outside sheet metal. Everything else was shared. Some common issues that we found throughout research here. So misfire issues, much like many vehicles. Interestingly enough, PCV issues. So you will see when we get to the common codes that there are a lot of PCV codes on there. Timing chain wear, much like many vehicles with timing chains and no maintenance, but they can be, due to the design of the engine, can be a little difficult to diagnose and then repair. So there's actually a tip that we're going to give in a little bit too. And signal acquisition module issues. So according to techs I've talked to, very common. Front signal acquisition module, rear signal acquisition module. They're like body control modules on the vehicle. They only go for like a couple $100. They're so common, but they do have a large number of failures. Common codes. So as I said, top 10 codes, and the majority of them, as we see, are between the PCV valve malfunction and engine oil pump actuation valve malfunction. So between those two, that is 9 out of the top 10 codes, and you see it's all pretty much on the same engine. So that would lead me to believe that maybe it's just 2-liter engine that's causing a lot more of the issues. And notice how it's also the C-Class, which was our top selling model. So see how this all kind of blends together. It's the most common vehicle, and this engine is the most common engine in this. And then the most common failures are these. So you see it's pretty much the same 2 types of codes, oil pump actuation and the PCV. So I just thought that was kind of interesting there. And this is right out of the scan tool, right? Top 3,600 codes, and these are the top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 codes actually I've received. OEM-specific features. So a few things that are unique to them. Now, doing my research, I've kind of looked through, and they don't really have any, how do I want to say it? Not really anything that they really harp on for marketing purposes, like a lot of other manufacturers do. Is, oh, we have this, we have that, or like BMW has like 5 different ways to change the timing in their valve intake runners and stuff like that. They're fairly complex creatures, but there's nothing that's like earth-shattering about them. They just use tried and true methodology. But one thing that is very unique about them is their chassis codes and their engine codes, because if you're going to try and get parts for them or look some of them up, especially if you're looking it up year, make, model in the scan tool, it can be a little bit confusing. So they do have a method, somewhat of a method to their madness. On the chassis codes, the first letter is going to be denoting what kind of vehicle it is. So W is for short wheelbase, V is for long wheelbase, R is for 2 seats, C is for coupes, S for station wagons, A for cabriolets, and X is for SUVs that are designed from an already existing platform. Now, the number that comes after that seems like there's not much rhyme or reason to it. I think it's just fairly sequential as to how it goes across. So a W220, for example, would be a model that you will find. And you'll see that on the scan tool too. I'll make sure I call it out when we go live on the tool and pull some screenshots. Also, the engine codes. So the engine codes have a little bit less of a rhyme or reason from what I could find. M means it's gas. It's a gas engine. I can tell you that. And then OM is diesel. But the numbers is, this is kind of like the base engine family. So like a 272 in this example is a 3.5 liter. The 272 in this example that's the base engine family. And then 977 would be the variant. Now on the engines themselves, they have a plate that would have these numbers in it, along with a bunch of other numbers that denote other things. It's more specific to that vehicle. But to order parts, sometimes you may need to know at least this base 6 digits, right? So 272, 977. Same thing with the transmissions. So 722 transmission and 960 would be the variant, right? So a lot of their main components are numbered in that way. So just so you're aware that you may need to know that information when you're working on it, especially if you're not familiar with working on Mercedes vehicles. That can be a little bit to get your head wrapped around, right? Because they do that differently than anybody. Now let's get to tips from a tech. So this brings us, that's actually a really good segue with that engine. So an M272 or M273 engine's timing chain. So Sean Shaw, one of our diagnostic reps up here in Connecticut, actually, he's a former Mercedes and BMW tech, and he gave me this little tip here. So on these, you know, timing chains can stretch, timing guides can wear, tensioners will fail, what have you, any sort of weird timing problem where it'll set maybe one of the cams out of time when it stretches or something like that. In order to check it, you would normally have to like disassemble a lot of the engine, but there is a trick. And actually I found a video from Mercedes that shows how to do it as well. So I took a couple screenshots out of that. But for what you want to do is you want to remove the cam sensors, both cam sensors on each bank. So there's 4 cam sensors, so you can take them off each bank there. And then there are holes that will be left over when you pull them out, right? So there's one cam sensor there, there's one cam sensor there, and there's a couple holes. You can't see the bottom one there. You'll turn the engine clockwise to line up the mark on the crank. We want to keep the chain tension going the right direction, so we want to always go clockwise with that. You'll pull it up until this mark that's on the crank lines up. So they said it's 305. Next to the 305, there's a little mark. If it's an older engine, not sure how easily it's going to be to see it, but in this case, it looks like a pretty brand new engine. So not sure how much that'll wear off, if at all. Not sure, but just be aware that could be a possibility as well. And then you'll look through the holes that were left by the cam sensors. So in this case, there is a circular group of numbers with a circle around it. So this one is good. That's where it's supposed to be. And then they looked at the other one, and this one is out of time. Right? So this, say an intake cam is okay and the exhaust cam is not, then you'll know that maybe your timing chain is stretched, something like that. So there's marks that you can see in order to do that and make it a lot easier than having to disassemble half the engine to inspect the timing chain. You can see, oh, well, it's all in time, so maybe it's something else type of thing. So I thought that could save a ton of time, I could think, because it's a process to get that everything apart. Really got to pull the engine in order to get the timing, you know, all the timing stuff apart. So that right there, I think, is worth its weight in gold, just to be able to look and see and test that visually. Nice and easy. Okay, some OEM specific functions when it comes related to the scan tool. So couple tests when it comes to the engine. Injection quantity adjustments, one big one. So if you replace a fuel injector, you have to put in a 5-digit code from that injector in order to compare it to the engine so it knows how much to flow. There's also numerous adaptations available. I know they're pretty notorious for having a lot of adaptations in coding and programming, things like that. So correction of the ignition, correction of fuel quantity, fuel pump activation, teaching of throttle stops, resetting of adaptation values, etc. And I'll kind of walk through one of these lists when we go into on the tool as well. Teaching of the transmission. So this is for when the control unit's replaced, or the electro-hydraulic controller unit was replaced, or the automatic transmission itself was replaced. Also, suspension height adjustment. There's various ways they go through and adjust suspension height. In this case, they call it a level calibration. If a level sensor has been replaced, if the airmatic control module has been replaced, vehicles have been incorrectly calibrated. It says it must be carried out on a chassis alignment system, does not need to be exactly level. And then use the button up and down to move the specific target level and save it with the inclinometer. After specified level has been reached, continue to entry with the inclined angle. And there's a whole thing you have to go through. You can also do raised suspension struts. And on some vehicles that are equipped with the air suspension, you may have seen those videos before where there's, they call it rodeo mode, where the vehicle is just kind of moves around like this, and just really what it's doing is it's testing the actuators up and down sequentially around the outside of the vehicle. It kind of looks like the car is dancing. So that's available too on the vehicles that need it and support it. Also, before we go live on the tool, I want to mention something that is fairly unique to Volkswagen, not Volkswagen, Mercedes. Unique to Mercedes with the scan tool. So when leaving the module, the tool will prompt you to cycle the key. Turn the key off, wait a couple seconds, turn the key on. You need to do that. It seems like it's a pain every time you need to do that, but because of how they communicate, how the modules communicate, they need to be key cycled when you leave the module. Otherwise, you may risk damage to the vehicle. Not necessarily physical damage, but we have had people lock up cars, like electrically lock up cars. Like I can't communicate with the car anymore, the car won't start, those types of things. So just be aware that read the instructions on the screen, back out properly. On the wireless tools as well, like a Varus and Zeus, make sure you do stop communication or change vehicle would be this button, and then that stops communication with the vehicle before you leave the vehicle. Because some people may just go in the module and they'll just, all right, I'm done, I'll just pull it out and then go on about their merry day. And that can screw up the car too if you're actually communicating with it at the same time. So you need to make sure you do that on the non-wireless tools like Apollos, Tritons, Soluses, those sorts of things. You just want to make sure you back all the way out to the main engine menu. So that'll force it to stop communicating. It'll also force you to turn the key and all that. So just make sure you're aware of that and make sure that that gets done so we don't cause any unforeseen, unnecessary issues with it. All right, let's go live on the tool and check out a few of these example vehicles. So the first one I have is the 2013 C-Class. So let's go into the scanner here quick. And you'll also notice down here, or actually right there on that screen too, but you'll notice down here on the bottom, it says 204.331, right? So that's that chassis variant. So this would be a 204 would be the number on that anyways. And let's go into engine quick. Also, since I'm in a simulator, there may be some variants that need to get done as well. Functional tests, and you'll see we got actuator tests, special functions, output controls, and adaptations. So special functions is going to be for a gasoline particulate filter if equipped. Also, we might find some things on these with the simulator that don't necessarily exist on the vehicle. You'd never see that hooked up to a real car though, if it didn't have it. Adaptations, for example, correction of program ignition, injector quantity adjustment, talked about that a little bit ago. So when replacing an injector, it's essential to save the QR code of the new injector in the engine control unit. So it is a 5-character number located on the body of the injector. And then there's an example. So I just go in there, edit it, and you can type in the new number when you need it. And then just hit OK. And then just hit OK there, and it'll code it. And then also speaking of, well, adaptations, right? We have adaptations. So this will tell you, or reset your engine adaptations, right? It's going to tell you what you need to do in order to do that. And then there's also a couple coding menus as well. Like I said, they have a lot of coding involved in certain parts and certain things. So in this case, coding is things like what kind of exhaust system does it have? EGR valves. There's different codes in here that don't have definitions necessarily. So you need to know what you're doing and changing some of these things. Like your vehicle speed limiter. What transmission variant do we have? Gas airflow sensor. Those sorts of things. So 2 coding menus on there for two different things, 2 different menus, vacuum pumps, things of that nature. So if you need to go into those menus, they are available as well. All right, let's go into get some SureTrack information on this car. It's actually not the one I picked, but so go back to C250 actually. That's what I wanted. See, with the codes, the body codes, right? It doesn't always translate. Engine code as well. You see that there. Transmission code there as well. Go in here and we'll see 61,797 repairs. Most of them misfires. Then we have a cam sensor, coolant thermostat, fuel volume regulator control, Spark plugs, coils. You know, this is a lot of this is your usual suspects, and a lot of the misfire stuff that's pretty standard. So, and timing chain number one on that as a choice for in there. Let me change engines quick. Go to 300. That'll do a 3.5 liter engine on that one. 36,000 repairs, a lot of misfires on that as well. We'll go to 350. So that's a 3.5 liter as well. So that should have the same, and it does. And then go with the AMG. Just look here real quick. So I think this one had no, only one engine. All right, never mind. C63 is the AMG. So that's going to have way fewer repairs. 5,600 repairs though. Lean, thermostats, misfires, secondary air injection system on that one too. Not a lot of occurrences on that though. So let's look at now the E-Class. It's going to have a lot of similar stuff in there because they're going to share kind of engines and transmissions and stuff because they're the same model year even. This one does have a lot of variants though. So we pull up a variant. Adaptations, you know, in this case, teaching of used fuel injectors, reset it. Adaptations, throttle valve stop, injector quantity adjustment. This particular module doesn't have coding as an option. So it depends on what variant you have. And then of course it goes back to the stopping communication as well. Switch the key off. It's going to wait, switch the key on. And then it's going to bring you back to the main menu. Right? So you're not going to see those variants when you go in on the actual vehicle itself. All right, check some SureTrack. The 3 liters of diesel, 3.5 liter, we'll use that. We'll do the 4MATIC, which is their all-wheel drive system. And we'll see once again, misfires on that 3.5 liter intake air system leak. Is one of the top codes as well. Valve stem, spark plugs, headlight bulbs. Not a lot of odd stuff there. I don't see a lot of odd stuff there. So by and large, comparing to some other European brands that we've went through, there's not a lot of weird. Doesn't seem like a lot of weird, wild stuff that you're going to run into those. It's just kind of a complex repair, we'll put it that way. And then we'll go to the Mercedes as well. Oh, not the Mercedes. Yeah, it's a Mercedes. They're all Mercedes. GLA class as well. This one's got a 2-liter engine in it, so it's going to be a little bit different. It looks like it's probably going to be about the same for adaptations and stuff, right? Yeah, so injector quantity adjustments and things. Output controls, oil pump valve. That could be important for that that top code there that we get. Okay. And then let's check our SureTrack. And this was a GLA. Why did that not come up? There we go. GLA 250. Attic. This vehicle. So 15,000 repairs on that. And then we see this code right here and this code right there. Those are those PCV regulator valves. So this is like one of the most common codes on there. And they don't provide a lot of information on it either, but this one they did. This PCV one. Oh, I clicked on the wrong code. Wow, a second. This one right there. That's the one. There we go. PCV valve. They call it an oil separator. What it does, it separates the oil out of the PCV system, so it's not burning oil. It wipes the oil out, and then it just burns the extra gases. So yeah, lots of different things that might need to be done on that on the PCV valve. So that is fairly common on that. A couple other. That's P0128. That's a thermostat code, right? Thermostat code as well. Thermostat heater. It's an electric thermostat on there as well. So yeah, there is Mercedes-Benz. Hopefully it picked up a couple little nuggets. I think that timing chain one was pretty powerful. That can save you a ton of time there. So that is Mercedes. let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. So next week, we are bringing back a topic that has always been pretty popular, and we'll add some new twists to it. So next week is modern ignition systems testing and analysis. We're going to focus more on a lot, especially on the coil on plug vehicles, because those have some little wrinkles to testing them as well, especially some of them you can't even test externally. So we're going to talk about it, talk about firing line, spark line, all that good stuff as well. Same time and same place as always, 6 to 9 Eastern every Tuesday. Join me on Zoom at snapon.com/OT. Also, the 6 p.m. class goes live to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnostics. Please like and subscribe if not already. And the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes live to my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/SnapOnJason, all one word, no dash in the Snap-on. Any of the other previous topics that we've had in this series are also available on our YouTube channel. If you scan that QR code right there, it will bring you right to the channel and subscribe you automatically. So that's pretty helpful. 93 episodes. This one's actually episode 94. So we're slowly approaching episode 100. Should be sometime in the fall. We'll get there. So anything from ADAS and oxygen sensor testing and anything in between. So definitely check those out. Once again, they are free 24/7 on our YouTube channel. And also, do we have your email address? Maybe we do. More than likely, we don't. Unless you gave us your email address or gave your Snap-on representative your email address when you activated the scan tool, we probably don't have it. And because of that, you may be missing out on some more training and technical focus things. So technical focus articles, SureTrack blog, quick tips, new product releases. They'll give you my schedule for the next couple months at a time as well. Here's an example of one of those technical focus articles on timing chains and how to identify a stretch timing chain. Hey, a lot of timing chain stuff this episode, right? So that's just gives you some tips and tricks on that. So if we don't have your email address, scan that QR code and you can just type in your information and then we'll have it and you'll be able to start getting these this type of information. So worth it. It's free once again. All right, now time for questions. As I said, this is a pre-recorded episode this week as I'm traveling. So once again, if you're on Zoom, just reply to that email that you got, the confirmation email. If you're on YouTube, just leave a comment under the video. Facebook, leave a comment under the video, and I'll get to those as I am able to. Also want to mention my buddy Keith, who also does free training. So on Wednesday, it is on Zeus and Zeus Plus, and on Thursday, it is on Apollo and Triton Tools, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific. Join us on Zoom for that. If you go to snapon.com/OT, you can sign up. He's going to take you through everything on that tool, soup to nuts, or as much as he can in about an hour and a half. The first hour is going to be setup functions, scanner functions, fast track intelligent diagnostics, security link, those types of things. Then he takes about a 5-minute break in the middle, and then about 45 minutes worth of scope and meter functions on the back half. So definitely pretty thorough for what it is, for the time allotted anyways. Keith's been with us for over 30 years, so he's definitely a deep well of Snap-on knowledge. It's kind of designed to have the scan tool in front of you, watch what he does on the screen, and copy what he does on your screen. So if that's something you're interested in, and once again, it's free every Wednesday and Thursday, so go check that out. And with that, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me. Hopefully you learned a few little tips and tricks and nuggets on Mercedes. Hopefully you'll join me next week for ignition system, modern ignition systems. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good night and take care.